Hi everyone, it's Paul with Diablo Mobile Mechanic. In this video, I'm going to walk you through some real-world diagnostic footage from a 2006 Ford F-250 with the 6-liter Powerstroke diesel. The customer's complaint? The truck randomly stalls and won't restart unless both batteries are disconnected and left off for about 10 minutes. Sometimes it even has to do it twice before it fires back up. To start, I connected my Autel MaxiSys Ultra S2 and ran a complete system scan. I also tested both batteries, the starter and the charging system using the Autel BT608. There were no check engine lights, no active or pending codes, and all of the monitor data looked completely normal. However, both batteries tested as weak, replace soon, so we went ahead and replaced them, especially with the cold weather coming up. Weak batteries can cause voltage drops or brownouts, which are bad news for the Powerstroke's FICM, which stands for Fuel Injection Control Module. While inspecting the FICM, I also found that 2 of the 4 special mounting nuts were missing. Those were replaced as well to reduce vibration and ensure a solid electrical ground. On my first test drive, I put about 74 miles on this truck, a mix of highway and city driving, and it performed flawlessly. All of the data logs showed a healthy running 6-liter, which is impressive given the truck's 340,000 miles. A few days later, I took it back out and decided to change up the test conditions. I found a stretch of road where I could do hard accelerations up to about 45 miles per hour, then I immediately pulled over and let it idle for a couple of minutes. I repeated that pattern nearly 10 times before the truck finally failed, and this time I caught it in the act. As I slowed for a red light, the engine suddenly died. When the light turned green, I was able to coast safely to the shoulder. I followed the customer's procedure, disconnected both batteries, waited about 10 minutes, and after doing that twice, sure enough, it started. Now let's dive into the MaxiSys log playback and take a look at what was happening right before and during the stall event. I've tied the MaxiSys into my PC through an Elgato HDMI capture device, so you'll be able to see in real time exactly what I saw. Alright, let's get into the playback. Alright, here we are with the key on, engine off. I start it up right here. It starts up, and the high pressure oil system, as you can see, shot up over 1500 psi. The oil is cold, and then it just continues to run. Across the top of the screen here, we've got 3 voltages that we're monitoring. These are on the FICM. You've got the FICM logic power, the FICM vehicle power, and the FICM output power. The logic power and vehicle power should be both hovering around 12-13 volts, and the FICM power should be somewhere between 48 and 50 volts. Throughout this whole log, the FICM power is perfect. It doesn't skip a beat, and everything is fine with the FICM. What we're looking at here in the middle of the screen is the high pressure oil system. So the left side, you see the injector control pressure. That's the actual measured pressure. In the middle, you see injector control pressure desired. This is what the commanded pressure is, and these should be about the same. And then you've got the injector control pressure regulator duty cycle. So it ranges between 0 and about 85 or 84.77%. And when it's at 85, that means it's maximum pressure. It's got the valve closed most of the time, holding the pressure high. And then when it's at 0, it's lowering the pressure. So right now you see a normal reading, and everything looks good. And lastly, across the bottom here, we have the synchronization from the FICM. This is a binary reading. It's either yes or no. It's either in sync or not. And what it means is that the crank and cam position sensors are reading correctly in the PCM, and that the PCM is sending the signal to the FICM, and it indicates that the vehicle is running. In this section of the log, I'm running a series of hard accelerations followed by immediate idle periods. The goal here is to keep the engine hot and prevent it from cooling down between runs so that we can stress the electrical system and high pressure oil systems as much as possible. This clip shows about 7 of the 10 plus cycles that it took before the failure finally occurred, and I've sped up the footage roughly about 5 times to keep it moving. As you can see, the FICM voltages remain rock solid. Both the logic and the vehicle power stay steady right around battery voltage, and the 48 volt output doesn't waver at all. The high pressure oil system also looks healthy, with ICP pressures climbing to as high as about 3,900 psi during the harder pulls. Everything here looks completely normal. which made it even more interesting when the issue finally showed up a few runs later. All right, we're slowing back down to normal playback speed here. This is me pulling away from a stoplight. There is another stoplight just a short distance away. I don't accelerate very much. I come cruising into a stop, and right as I stop, that's when the engine dies. Here's where things finally get interesting. In this part of the log, you can see the measured high-pressure oil pressure suddenly drop off. We'll go over the last couple of seconds frame by frame in just a minute. Naturally, I tried to restart the engine a few times. What you're seeing here are those futile attempts. Notice that the FICM voltages all remain perfectly normal and FICM sync stays solid while cranking. So the control system itself is doing exactly what it should. The problem is that actual high-pressure oil never builds past about 250 psi, which is far below the minimum required to fire the injectors. Meanwhile, the IPR duty cycle is pegged at about 85%, meaning the valve is fully commanded closed as the PCM desperately tries to build pressure. You can also see the desired pressure line climbing way above the actual reading, a clear sign that the system can't build or hold injection pressure. Now let's go back to the point of failure and take a more granular look at each frame as the failure occurred. Let's change up the view here so we can get a better look at frames 2719 through 2722. This is where the failure starts and ends. Alright, let's stop here at frame 2719. This is the last frame where everything still looks perfectly normal. The FICM and PCM are fully in sync. The injector pressure regulator duty cycle looks healthy, and both the desired and actual injection control pressures are tracking right on top of each other. All three FICM voltages are exactly where they should be for a stock unit. Now on to frame 2720. This is the first clear sign of failure, the moment the system starts to lose control pressure. What we're likely seeing here is the O-ring seal, probably on the high-pressure oil tube beneath the pump, beginning to blow out in real time. You can see the start of a discrepancy between the desired and actual injection control pressures, about 582 psi desired versus only 513 actual, along with a rise in the IPR duty cycle to around 55%. At the same time, the FICM and PCM are now out of sync in this frame, marking the onset of the stall event. Now on to frame 2721. This is where the failure is in full swing. Here we can see the desired injection control pressure spiked to just over 1100 psi, while the actual pressure has collapsed to only about 74 psi. The IPR duty cycle has dropped to around 15%, showing that the PCM is no longer able to command pressure effectively. Although the FICM voltages still look good and remain within spec, it's now completely out of sync, confirming the loss of communication and control at this point. And finally, frame 2722. This frame shows the system in a completely failed state. The IPR duty cycle is stuck at 14.84%, the desired injection control pressure has dropped to 0, and the actual pressure is only about 11 psi. The FICM voltages, however, are rock solid. All readings remain perfectly steady. So there's definitely no FICM issue here, at least not today. Well, that's it. We've taken a deep dive into the final second or two leading up to this 6-liter Powerstroke's failure. The next logical step would be to remove the IPR valve and perform an air test to pinpoint the exact location of the high-pressure oil leak. This engine, however, has over 340,000 miles on it. The owner mentioned that the injectors were replaced and some high-pressure oil system work was done at around 100,000 miles, which means that was about 15 years and 240,000 miles ago. Given that history, I advise the customer not to spend the extra money chasing a single leak and instead to plan on resealing the entire high-pressure oil system when the time comes. For now, the customer has chosen to live with the problem. If they decide to move forward with the repair, I'll post a follow-up video with the results. If you enjoy these deep dive diagnostic breakdowns, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video. If you're in the East Bay and need automotive diagnostics, AC repair, or just some solid repair work done right at your home or office, check out Diablo Mobile Mechanic. We're local, licensed, and registered with the California Bureau of Automotive Repair, ready to get you back on the road.